Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. This is the first Patreon supporter article for August. If you're at the $5 level, you get to, there's two $5 levels. One is bonus podcast content and one is the articles. So if you're at the $5 article level, you get to submit a topic for me to cover. This one has been submitted by Logan D'Alessandro. So Logan has been sending me kind of a continuing theme of stories. One of them, I talked about the student loan debt crisis, the student loan bubble, basically. And then last month we talked about the how pensions are, as he puts it, woefully underfunded. So he wanted to, what we're going to go into is he submitted an article, and it's alarmingly eye-opening. How susceptible they are to correction in the stock market. Logan says that U.S. pension plans will face catastrophic losses once the stock market corrects, which is incredibly concerning. And then there's an article that we're gonna go into entitled "Modest Downside Could Spark $3 Trillion Surge in Pension Liabilities." And this is in Zero Hedge. I'll put the link below. And again, overall, this is another example, as we've talked about before, of mismanagement of funds and just how it's like all these governments, all these corporations, the banks, everybody are just acting like it's just this. They're all in Vegas just on spring break or something, going nuts. I mean. The carbon bubble and the carbon industry isn't like, boy, we should put our money into clean fuels. They're just like, no, double down on petroleum. It's nuts. And then this is all more insane behavior. It's insane behavior. And it's just fueled by greed and corruption and a total disregard for anybody else's needs. Like, what's the greater good? Like, no one involved in this is asking with a pension. So one of the reasons America always had such a great economy and such a great middle class and had upward mobility was and pensions and work weeks and all that stuff were created by unions. So that was one of the great things. You work 20, 30, 40 years for a company, then when you retire, you have all this money. And again, it's money that fuels the economy. This is the thing I don't get about these corporations, and they're just bleeding everybody dry. If nobody has any money to buy anything, the economy stops. I mean, we learned that in 2008. I mean, no one has any money to buy anything. How does the economy continue to go? And of course, what they do, they saw these big pension funds, and instead of being safe with them, they've gambled. So here's some what's been going on, and this is some of the stuff by Moodys, the business evaluation company. Some very simplistic math from Moodys helps to shed some light on just how inevitable a public pension crisis is in the United States. Inevitable. Analyzing a basket of 56 public plans with net liabilities of $778 billion, Moody's found that just a modest downside return scenario over the next 3 years, 2017, 7.2%, 2018, negative 5%, 2019, 0%, could result in a 59% surge in new unfunded liabilities. So they're not even talking about catastrophic, just a downturn, which will happen. That is cyclical. That's cyclical. The crazy downturns, that's obviously fueled by the corrupt banks and everybody, but they're just talking about a modest downturn will have a 59% surge in unfunded liabilities. Moreover, given that total unfunded public pension liabilities are roughly $5 trillion in aggregate, this implies that a simple 5% drop in assets in 2018 could trigger a devastating $3 trillion increase in net liabilities. Moody's found that even if the funds return 90% over the next 3 years, and then net liabilities would still increase by 15%. And this is a reference per pensions and investments. This is insane. And they ran a bunch of different scenarios. And again, it's a very detailed article, so go in and read the detail of it. But let me go into the highlights here. And what the problem is too is they know this, and they just keep kicking the can down the road, right? Before they even have to admit there's a problem. So they're publicly not even admitting the problem. I just watched The Big Short again online. I saw that when the movie came out, and that's what was going on there. That handful of guys that was predicting the housing crisis, they're like, how is this happening? How are people doing this? They're doing the same thing here with pensions. Here's an example, and I talked about this in last month's article, but it bears repeating because it talks even more to this point. Take Chicago's largest pension fund, the Municipal Employees Annuity and Benefit Fund of Chicago, MEABF, as an example. Most people focus on a fund's net funded status, which for the MEABF is a paltry 20.3%. But the problem with focusing on funded status is that it can be easily manipulated by pension administrators who get to simply pick the rate at which they discount future liabilities out of thin air. So rather than lend any credence to some made-up pension math, we prefer to focus on actual pension cash flows, which can't be manipulated quite so easily. And if you take a quick look at their cash flows, quickly reveals the Ponzi-ish nature of the fund. In both 2015 and 2014, the fund didn't even come close to generating enough cash flow from investment returns and contributions to cover its $800 million in annual benefit payments. Which basically means they're slowly liquidating assets to pay out liabilities. I'm not a big financial guy, but that's terrifying. So they show and there's a graph, and you see member contributions, employer contributions, net investment income, and then the benefits and other expenses, and they don't add up at all. At all. So, of course, like all Ponzi schemes, liquidating assets to pay current claims can only go on for so long before you simply run out of assets. So, and then with the article, they go into run scenarios of what it's going to be. They wanted to take a look at an impact of a couple return scenarios. On the expense side, annual benefit payments are currently at just over $800 million and are growing at a fairly consistent rate due to an increasing number of retirees and inflation adjustments guaranteed to workers. Assuming payouts continue to grow at the same pace over the next 15 years, the fund will be making annual cash payments to retirees of around $1.3 billion by 2023. Not that far away. Investment returns, on the other hand, are much more volatile, but have averaged 5.5% over the past 15 years. That said, the fund took big hits in 2002 and 2008, following the dot-com and housing bubble crashes. And while we hate to be pessimistic, let's just take a look at what happens if by some small chance today's market gets exposed as massive bubble and we get another big correction in 2018. Such a correction would force the fund to liquidate over $1.5 billion in assets in 2018 alone. So, and they write, the system would run out of assets in 4 years. Of course, the strategy ceases to work when the pensions actually run out of cash, which could happen sooner than you think. And when it does, America's retirees will suddenly find themselves about 5 to 8 trillion poorer than they thought they were. This is like what Enron did, but on a massive scale. And what happened in 2008 and 2009 when people lost their pensions. So you work for a company for a long time. You work for the city of Chicago, right? A municipal job, steady income, hard to get fired, can't get laid off. The city's always working. It's a big tax base coming in. You know, city like Chicago does a lot of tourism, has a lot of, it's unbelievable to me. And the same guy that was the Bernie Madoff whistleblower, Harry Markopoulos, he's uncovered a new fraud in Boston, the Boston Transit Authority. So it's not only mismanaged, there's fraud. I mean, this is just one, the Boston thing is just one case. Logan DeLisandro, and I tend to believe him, thinks that maybe there's corruption and fraud all over the place. Maybe there's that in Chicago. Who knows? If there's not concrete evidence, it's tough to say. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's also fraud involved in this mismanagement. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody is taking this and seeing these big pension funds and going, boy, we could gamble on this and I'd get a little taste on the side, or whatever they're doing. So it's startling, and I'm very concerned. And if you have a pension, especially in the city of Chicago, I'd be asking some questions, some serious questions, like where is the money invested? If people, do you have the liquidity to cover these assets and all this other stuff like that, these liabilities? I would start asking some serious questions. And if you're like, I don't understand this financial stuff, which a lot of it's confusing to me, I would talk to a financial advisor, somebody that understands it, and say, can you explain this to me? Because even after watching The Big Short twice or 3 times now, there's a lot of it I'm like, huh, what? I don't get. But I hope, and I'm going to put these articles, the links below, please read them over. And I thank Logan DeLisandro, a Patreon supporter, for sending this in. He's been a supporter for many months now. I appreciate it. I'll be sending an email out to all of the people once your cards, you got charged on the 1st, and I get the funds usually on the 5th or 6th. Then I send out all the emails, making sure everybody's, sometimes like somebody's card doesn't go through for whatever reason, and that's fine. But I'll send the emails out, and then you can send me articles and all that other stuff. And I'll be posting the bonus content. And thank you so much for watching. Logan, thank you so much for supporting the show and opening my eyes and all the viewers to what this is going on here. And I appreciate all of you out there staying vigilant and keeping me vigilant. And that's how we're going to make Gotham great again.